Love it? Do we still love the building?
Yes.
Who's going to go first?
You can text me on that too as well, 2101. Do we still love Te Papa, the building, 25 years on? I've got to say, Courtney, I've really grown used to it. Now, I used to hate it. Now I'm thinking it's pretty special.
You know, I think it's a 25-year marker of itself, of hopes and dreams and a whole bunch of postmodern architecture all wrapped up into one. And it is certainly nothing if not distinctive.
Good on you, Courtney. Kia ora. Thanks for your time there. That's Te Papa's Chief Executive. Veronica says, my local hero is the person looking after my elderly disabled father, given I can't get hold of him in Gisborne. I hope there is someone, likely his neighbour. Here's hoping. Stay safe, stay well, and thanks for listening to you all. Checkpoint next with Lisa Owen.
Kei te whakarongo mai koe ki te reo irirangi o Aotearoa. This is Checkpoint on RNZ National. I'm Lisa Owen. E haere nei, Wairoa is on its knees, cut off from all sides, running out of supplies. Help may have to come from the air. Mayor Craig Little tells us exactly how it is. A Hawke's Bay family faces an absolutely crushing loss, not just their home and their livelihood, but a friend missing too. Gisborne and Coromandel are running out of water. We'll go live to both. A short time ago, police confirmed they'd found the body of a child caught in floodwaters. More than 10,000 people are displaced, 140,000 plus homes are without power. The Prime Minister is due to update the country shortly, and we'll go there as soon as it happens. Don't forget, you can watch us live on the RNZ website or Facebook.
RNZ News at 5 o'clock. Ahi Marie, good afternoon. Ko Evie Ashton tēnei. The death toll from Cyclone Gabrielle has now risen to 4, including the death of a child caught out by rising floodwaters in Eskdale. It's the third death in Hawke's Bay, where more than 9,000 people have been displaced by flooding. Phones and power are still out for tens of thousands, major roads are still cut, and there are some communities without drinking water. Food and fuel supplies are running low, with long queues and some panic buying at the supermarkets that are open. In Dargaville in Northland, people are being told to evacuate yet again, and slip-hit communities on Auckland's west coast remain cordoned off. Displaced residents in Hawke's Bay are split from their whānau and desperately trying to contact loved ones. Throughout the day, more and more people have sought shelter and essentials at evacuation centres around the region. Lauren Crimp has been speaking with evacuees.
6 army trucks arrived outside the Hastings Sports Centre this afternoon, carrying 90 people rescued from Waiohiki Marae, which was surrounded by floodwaters. They joined around 150 people who had already stayed overnight. There were children and elderly carrying blankets, toys and washing baskets full of belongings. But many arrived at the centre with nothing, having lost everything. With communication lines still down, they don't have any idea how long they'll be staying. They say they are feeling lost, heartbroken and exhausted.
Food, water and fuel supplies are being monitored closely by the Wairoa District Council as it remains totally blocked off by slips and flooding. The Wairoa District Council Emergency Operations Centre Controller says all ATMs and FPOS are down due to no Wi-Fi, and that means people can't withdraw cash to buy food. Juanita Savage says they need Wi-Fi access for the supermarket, fuel station and for the airport.
With that Wi-Fi link, if we can get that, then we can get the helicopters more fuel because there's the pump then needs to be reset via Wi-Fi.
Juanita Savage says several hundred people were rescued from floodwaters yesterday via helicopters, tractors, horses and even a lilo. Petrol and water remain in short supply in Gisborne. People have been asked to reduce their use to a quarter of what's normal or the taps will run dry. And big fruit and vegetable growers are being asked to limit water. A $40 cap has been put on all fuel purchases. The Ministry of Education has confirmed all schools are closed until Monday. 4,500 customers remain without power, including more than 1,600 in Wairoa, and there's no time frame yet on when supply will be restored. In Tairāwhiti, a farmer says the scale of the devastation is as bad, if not worse, than Cyclone Gabrielle 25 years ago. Toby Williams, who farms at Whangara between Tolaga Bay and Gisborne, says the flooding from the Uawa River has caused widespread damage.
So there'll be 1,000, maybe a couple of thousand hectares of crops lost. There's houses that have been flooded. We're expecting large stock losses across the flats and things, but some of these farms moved all their stock to the highest ground they had, but the level of these floods has meant that the highest ground they had was still not high enough.
Toby Williams says many farms in the region currently have no link to the outside world. Residents in the lower Northland town of Dargaville are being advised to evacuate, with another river swell expected in just under an hour. Kaipara District Council says people living in the Mangawhare area should evacuate now. The streets at risk of flooding are Finlayson Park Avenue, River Road, Victoria Street, Logan Street and their side streets. The council says the river is expected to swell at 6 o'clock tonight and again at 8 in the morning. Civil defence shelters are set up in the town. And the government is giving an initial $4 million to the rural sector to support farmers, growers, whenua Māori owners and isolated communities. Agriculture Minister Damien O'Connor says Cyclone Gabrielle has disrupted milk collection, inundating orchards and destroying livestock on unprecedented levels. To sport, and pace bowler Blair Tickner will make his test debut for New Zealand in the day-night cricket test against England, starting in Mount Maunganui tomorrow afternoon. Kyle Jamieson is out injured and Matt Henry is awaiting the birth of his first child. Meanwhile, preparing the Bay Oval pitch amid a cyclone has posed a few problems for turf manager Jared Carter, but surprisingly, rain hasn't been one of them.
Rain, yeah, we had about 130, 140 mils, so we haven't had as many as a lot of other places in the country, so we got lucky there. Yeah, it's been windy, very windy, so that was probably the biggest challenge. When we went into the cyclone, we were about a day away from game day in terms of where we wanted to be. So yeah, moistures have actually been all right, so we managed to hold them and we're pretty comfortable with where we're at the moment.
Boxing New Zealand is considering joining a growing US-led boycott of next month's Women's World Champs in India amid mounting concerns about the Russian-led sport's Olympic future. World governing body, the IBA, allows boxers from Russia and Belarus to compete with national flags and anthems despite the war in Ukraine. Boxing New Zealand chair, Keith Walker, says it never intended sending athletes, but some are paying their own way. And Commonwealth Games gold medalist Hamish Kerr has surpassed his own national high jump record with victory at a meet in Slovakia. He cleared 2.34 metres, 3 centimetres higher than his previous best. That's the news.
The effects of Cyclone Gabrielle continue.
I say only a possibility of heavy falls, but that on top of what's there could be really substantial.
We are struggling to communicate with our community. We are printing 22,000 Gisborne Heralds, which will be hand-delivered to everyone in town because we're dealing with a water crisis.
We'd had a mob of cattle standing up to their belly in floodwaters. I gave him a lift with his dog and we went across, herded them like swans.
With you throughout the storm, Morning Report, weekdays from 6 on RNZ National.
You're with Lisa Owen next on Checkpoint. Right now, the short forecast from Met Service to midnight Thursday. Northland to Taranaki, including the Central High Country, Bay of Plenty, Gisborne and Hawke's Bay. Mainly fine with isolated showers, thunderstorms and localised downpours possible from tomorrow afternoon, especially about the ranges of Gisborne and Hawke's Bay. For Whanganui and from Taihape to Wellington, also for Waidadapa. Isolated showers, but periods of rain for Wellington and Waidadapa today. Rain for all those areas tomorrow, with heavy falls for southern Waidadapa and the eastern hills of Wellington. Nelson and Buller, cloudy periods and isolated showers, clearing tomorrow evening. Marlborough and Canterbury, periods of rain, mainly north of Methven, with some heavy falls. Rain easing tomorrow morning and clearing for most in the afternoon. Westland and Fiordland, fine weather. Otago and Southland, partly cloudy. Patchy drizzle developing tonight, but staying dry about central Otago. And for Rekohu, Chatham Islands, periods of rain, possibly heavy today. It's 7 minutes past 5. Our next news headlines and traffic is at 5:20.
Nā mihi iwi, tēnā koutou katoa, nau mai haere mai ki Checkpoint i tēnei rā, ko Lisa Owen tēnei. Absolute devastation, the most catastrophic weather event in living memory. A plea tonight from a Hawke's Bay mayor whose town is completely cut off to the outside world. Wairoa is essentially an island and will run out of food and water in a few days. Gisborne, Hawke's Bay, most of the Coromandel, parts of Northland and Auckland are also cut off without power and cell phone coverage. More than 10,500 people have been displaced from their homes across the North Island, including at least 300 rescued by 12 helicopters from roofs across the Hawke's Bay. 144,000 people are still without power. Army trucks have been deployed as homes and roads have been destroyed, and hundreds of animals and livestock have perished. As we go to air tonight, police have confirmed they have found the body of a child swept away in floodwaters in Eskdale. Right now, residents in the northern town of Dargaville are being advised to evacuate, with the river expected to swell around 6 p.m. We will be with you until 7 p.m. tonight, and we'll bring you Prime Minister Chris Hipkins's press conference that's due to happen around 5:30. But we begin our program tonight with a Hawke's Bay family who has lost everything, including a family friend who is still missing after being swept away in floodwaters. The Beekmans were flying back from overseas when the worst of Cyclone Gabrielle decimated their orchard, injured a best mate and washed away his partner. Their friend Gareth was house-sitting the property in Esk Valley, where they grow apples, avocados, pears, walnuts, all sorts. It was their piece of paradise that had turned into hell by the time they landed in Auckland, trying to get the rest of the way home. In the dark, early hours, floodwaters had ripped through the house, even though it's been designed for extreme weather, elevated on 1.2-metre piles. Gareth was inside with his girlfriend. Mike and his daughter Frederique have seen the photos and spoken to Gareth, who is still in hospital.
Gareth decided that he wanted to secure some of our more valuable stuff, and he didn't think it could get much worse. And I can totally see where he was coming from. But the water kept rising. And at that stage, he simply could not make a safe... he couldn't flee the property in a safe way because the water was well beyond any vehicle being able to drive out of there. No boats, nothing to get out of there. So Gareth and his girlfriend sought refuge on our bench top in the kitchen, and as the water kept rising, he smashed his way through the ceiling, through the gyp boards in the ceiling. They clambered up into the ceiling space, and when they were up there, a 40-foot container took the front half of our house off, so smashed through the walls of the living room.
Just came floating down in the torrent of water.
Correct. Yeah. Correct. Yes. So that's when the house actually opened up. And Gareth, I spoke to him last night briefly because he's injured as a result of all of this.
Is he okay though?
Don't know. We'll get to that because it's we think he lost his girlfriend that night. She disappeared underwater. She disappeared under the house, and she's been missing. And things aren't looking great.
Oh, I am so sorry. I am so sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah, he went to hospital. He's got a broken leg and is bruised, but other than that, he's physically okay.
But so incredibly traumatised, I would imagine.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, he told me he's never been as scared in his life as yesterday.
How did he manage to get out? Did someone come for him?
He got rescued by a helicopter, so he managed to get onto the roof. And then, his daughter, who was in Napier, had reported him, missing to the police, and so they would have come from that report, I'm guessing. And he was evacuated, so...
And so they were watching the house for you while you were away?
Correct.
Yeah.
Gareth's my best mate, and it gives him a little bit of space out of a one-bedroom apartment, and it would work well with us because we've got 3 big dogs, or we had 3 big dogs, and they'd be able to stay on the orchard where they know everything.
Had you been away for long?
3 weeks. So before we boarded in LA, there was no real. We didn't know. Obviously, we had followed the movement of Gabrielle, but we actually had no reason to suspect that it would be the cataclysmic event that it's turned out to be.
So are you currently where?
We're in Auckland City right now because we landed here and we can't actually make our way back to Napier. So we can't actually assess the damage other than eyewitnesses' reports of our property and photos that have been sent to us. We actually don't know anything. We're trying to locate our dogs, but not holding my breath for that. Everything we had, it's all gone. So the orchard's completely ruined. The house is gone. Sheds, trucks. There's nothing there. There's literally nothing there now.
We got sent a photo, and you can see where the house is meant to be. It's just there's literally nothing. Like it's not even like it's just underwater. There's just nothing under there.
You must be, well, you're in a situation where you can't get home, I imagine, at the moment, not quite. And your best mate's in hospital, and he still doesn't know where his girlfriend is.
Correct, and we can't actually be with my mate. We can't be with Garrett. Then he sacrificed so much for us to have a fucking holiday. The last place we want to be now is in Auckland.
Yeah.
I know this is a terribly traumatic time, but has he told you, did they both manage to get into the roof after breaking open the jib board and climbing up into the house? They both managed to get into the ceiling?
They both managed to get into the ceiling. When the water kept rising into the ceiling space, they had to clamber onto the roof. And as they were trying to work their way from the ceiling space onto the roof, only Gareth made it.
So that's when they became separated?
Yeah.
Yeah. He said that a log, like he tried to help her, obviously, but a log separated them.
And do you know if there has been searches in the area or if anyone is still searching?
We reported this morning when we saw the report of a body found on Bayviews Beach. I got in touch with the police, and they've taken all the details, etc. And they're trying to follow up with Gareth. But he lost his phone. He's got. I mean, even if he would have had his phone, it's incredibly hard to get in touch with anyone in Napier at the moment, or maybe the wider Hawke's Bay. Yeah, so we don't know. We don't know.
And I was speaking there to Mike and his daughter Frederique, the Beekmans, and our hearts go out to them and their extended whānau. It is 5:15. Ki amo tunu mai. Do stay with us. You're listening to Checkpoint on RNZ National. Some Dargaville residents are being urged to evacuate their homes. The Kaipara District Council says people who live along River Road and Victoria and Logan Streets, as well as side streets and Finlayson Park Avenue, are strongly advised to leave. So that's along River Road, Victoria and Logan Streets, as well as side streets and Finlayson Park Avenue. You are strongly advised to leave. Shelter is available at the Anglican Church in Hokianga Street, and the local high school hall will open as an evacuation centre if needed. Wairoa is completely cut off and hundreds of people have had their homes swamped with water. Mayor Craig Little says they desperately need help.
Oh, Lisa, it's absolute devastation. I've never seen it, to be quite honest. Anything in my lifetime, or probably many others' lifetime. The river, the levels just came up unprecedented. It's just, people have been evacuated. It's just shocking, really, and we're completely cut off. Probably won't be connected to Napier for many, many months. We're trying to get a connection through to Gisborne, but we're not sure how they're going to be connected to the rest of the world. And our only hope really is now getting State Highway 38, which is a bit of a goat track, connected to Ruapara, and that would help us a lot. We're running low on fuel, we're running low on food. So without fuel, we can't clear the roads. So we're in a bad way. And luckily, we've got about 3.5, 4 days of water left because the substation or the pumping station has never flooded there like it has. It completely filled it up with water, so we've got to get motors out, get them checked and going again. So we're in a bad way, really.
You paint a catastrophic picture, Craig.
It pretty much is. It pretty much is. It's like Cyclone Gabrielle was really bad. It split the town in two and there's a lot of damage, but yeah, we're just like, we're on the Starlink. That's luckily, I'm obviously stealing someone else's data at the moment, but that's just hanging in there, and we're trying to get a few other links to get fuel, to get the supermarket, because all the EFTPOS machines, nothing works in this world once the power goes down.
Let's talk about some of the things that you've mentioned. You're basically an island right now, right? Cut off on all sides. What does that mean for getting food in?
For food, look, yeah, that's right. The only way we could probably get food in possibly now is by helicoptering. The supermarkets probably got 2 or 3 days left. So yeah, and our hope is if we can get the road to Gisborne open, it's looking pretty good in the next day or so. The port will be handy in Gisborne to get stuff brought down to Wairoa. But apart from that, helicopters.
And have you spoken to the supermarket and suppliers about whether that is feasible, and are they making those plans?
Oh, absolutely. The supermarket guy sits in all our emergency meetings and that with civil defence and that, so he's well and truly on it. He's just friendly trying to get his EFTPOS machines up and everything like that. But let's face it, a lot of the stuff was short anyway in a lot of supermarkets, like toilet paper and things like that. So, yeah, it's going to be a struggle.
Water. What do people need to do, please?
People need to. The biggest thing is, you get flooded out with silt and that. All you want to do is wash your silt off your driveways and, and if your house is flooded, wash it out of your house. But, yeah, we just can't afford to do that at the moment. Scrape your water off by all means, but, just don't wash it away. Just really conserve it. Conserve, the times you go to the toilet, the old, if it's yellow, let it mellow, I think, and brown, wash it down, I think that's what they say. Things like that, we've just got to conserve water for the good of our town, for everybody.
How many days did you say of water left, Craig?
About 3.5.
Okay, so what happens then?
Well, hopefully, if they can get the pumps up and running again. So basically, we have a pumping station, and it goes probably down about 20 metres into the river and through a tunnel. That's been completely flooded with water. Never happened. So we're pumping that out, and then we've got to recover the pumps out of there, bring them out of that, and then get them all sort of fixed up.
How are people doing?
People are going pretty well. We're a pretty tough sort of community. Everyone's coming together, that's what I've really noticed. But, man, we've got a lot of people suffering, a lot of people really hurting, as they do anywhere in New Zealand when we have a massive event. Auckland's been through it, Gisborne's been through it. People, that's their livelihoods, is their homes. And, oh, gosh, I just feel sorry. I went for a bit of a drive and just watching people, washing out their homes. And, it's just the flooding is the start, and it's a long way to go before they get back into their houses. Some people in your community do it tough anyway, Craig. It must break your heart seeing this. Oh, it does, and some of these people, are getting it done to them again. And it's, farmers, a lot of crops, we've got a dairy farmer, he can't milk his cows, it's a real animal welfare issue. People who rely on their maize crops, they're all down. It's really, really scary at the moment. You've just seen that light at the end of the tunnel for a lot of people in this town. It's really bad. And then knowing that the road to Napier isn't going to be open for many months, it's just a mess. And that's Wairoa Mayor Craig Little asking people, please conserve water. 22 minutes after 5 and you're with Checkpoint on RNZ National. Homai Ofakaro, we would love your feedback if you are able to get messages out, and we know that some of you are pretty frustrated with your inability to communicate. So those who can, you can text us on 2101, you can tweet us at Checkpoint RNZ or email checkpoint@rnz.co.nz. We're really keen to hear what's happening in your part of the country and how you are faring. It is time to go to the headlines now. Anea Iwi, Mina Pitapita Kōrero.
The death toll from Cyclone Gabrielle has risen to 4. The police say the body of a child was found in the Hawke's Bay settlement of Eskdale this afternoon. The child is believed to have been caught in rising water yesterday. 6 army trucks arrived at the Hastings Sports Centre this afternoon, carrying 90 people rescued from Wairoa marae, which was surrounded by floodwaters. They joined around 150 people who had already stayed overnight. Many arrived with nothing, having lost everything. Some residents of the Northland town of Dargaville are being urged to evacuate, with another river swell expected shortly. The Kaipara District Council says people living in the Mangawhare area should evacuate now. It says the river is expected to swell at 6 tonight and again at 8 in the morning. A Northland farmer says there may be a major kumara shortage because of Cyclone Gabrielle. Graham Lawrence of Dargaville says the wind and rain have covered his farm in silt. He says the sun has come out now, but that's a problem too, as it bakes the silt into the soil and causes the kumara plants to rot. And in other news, the White House says there's no indication 3 flying objects blasted out of the sky over the weekend by the US military are linked to Chinese spying. Spokesperson John Kirby says the objects may be, quote, tied to commercial or research entities and therefore benign. Those are the headlines. To traffic now. Everything is moving normally in Te Waipounamu, the South Island, at the moment. Thank goodness for you guys. In the north, State Highway 2 is now open between Opotski and Matawai. It's still closed between Matawai and Gisborne. And I am looking here at a whole lot of closed highway signs. Please check with Waka Kotahi Journey Planner before you go anywhere.
Kia ora rā e ho. Parts of the Coromandel have had a 4th day with no power and towns are quickly running out of water. Joining us now is Thames Coromandel Civil Defence Controller Gary Towler. Kia ora, Gary. What can you tell us about the power?
Kia ora. Well, we've made good progress today. We've had a break in the weather which has allowed us to get quite a lot of power restoration into Tairua. And this has been very, very successful in terms of getting the essential part of the business community going. Still a long way to go, but the generators are working well up there.
Any idea how many are still off without power?
No, I don't have a figure for you at the moment, sorry. But there are a few. It is a good percentage that both in Tairua and Pauanui who still do not have power. But Powerco have pulled out all stops overnight and today to get access, and the roading network has opened up sufficiently for them to bring the big generators in.
Okay, now speaking of the roads, what does it mean for groceries and supplies?
So in the last 15 minutes, we've had an update from Waka Kotahi contractor Higgins, who are quite confident that possibly by later tonight or in tomorrow morning, the State Highway 25 around the Coromandel will be open, subject to a lot of stop-go and traffic management. But the supply chain should be able to resume to some degree tomorrow. And so we're fingers crossed that's going to happen.
The big generators, Gary, where are they headed?
So the big generators are Powerco generators heading into Tairua.
Okay. And which are the worst affected areas right now?
In terms of power or...
In terms of all those resources, food, power, water.
Okay, so the power restoration is coming on slowly with Powerco. They have a massive clean-up job. So we could probably say that there are probably 7 or 8 of the smaller communities are still affected. A lot of them have had power restored. The roading network, most of our local roads are still compromised to some degree. A lot of them are still closed, and they will be until those slips are cleared. We've got about 40 or 50 slips on our local roads. As I just said, the State Highway 25 is possibly going to be open tonight or tomorrow under management. The focus for us probably tomorrow will be, one is still on welfare because we still have some people out of their houses, but there are some farmers in the northern northern third of Mercury Bay up in the top part of the Coromandel who are fast running out of fuel, and we are trying to establish access with them, with Fonterra and Fed Farmers to get some support up there.
So, Gary, are they blocked off on the road?
Yes, at the moment there are some slips on those roads much further north from Whitianga, and the crews haven't quite got to them to to clear. So that's our focus tomorrow, is to make sure that if those generators are running out for their milking sheds, we'll try and sort them out.
Go well, Gary. Thank you for joining us. That is Gary Towler, who's the Thames Coromandel Civil Defence Controller. 27 minutes after 5, kia amo tonu mai. You're listening to Checkpoint on RNZ National, and it's time to go to the business news. Ko taku hoa e nai nei, ko Nona Peltier, who joins me in the studio. Investors are being warned to beware of scams that are linked to Google ads. What's the deal?
Yeah, so, when you go searching for, say, compare deposit rates or something like that, what you're getting is some information and then maybe an ad at the top of the list. You click on that. It's actually not a reputable financial advisor offering up this advice. It's a scammer. So if you don't check to see that the information you're getting is from a reputable, licensed financial service advisor, and that is you can easily find that information on the Financial Markets Authority website, and you certainly should. You'll feel that maybe you'll get some pressure to make a decision or what have you. Anyways, people have lost millions over the last couple of weeks.
Millions?
Yeah. So there's been a number of incidents about this. It's not only New Zealand where this is going on. These are quite sophisticated scams. You won't know that you're being ripped off, but basically the whole idea there is to get you to make a decision quickly. So if you start to, find that that's happening to you, stop and definitely take time. A good financial advisor is never going to work against your interests and are going to work on your timeline, not on their own. So that's one way to be able to tell that you might be getting scammed there.
Okay, people beware.
Yes, indeed.
All right, corporate reporting season is underway. What are some of the day's highlights today?
Well, we've heard from a number of big companies. Sky City is one. Their share price rose 4.9% on their result. It was pretty strong. Tourism Holdings gave us an update, up 5%. Fletcher Building, not much of a difference there. They were on target, but it was a disappointing result just the same. Steel and Tube was also down, and if you're interested, you can find all that stuff on our website. We have quite comprehensive coverage of the day's business news. And anyways, the top 50 index ended up 9 points, helped, of course, by some of these strong results to 12,083. The New Zealand dollar is weaker, though, at 63 US cents, 90.8 Australian, 51.9 British pence. The reason? Well, the U.S. inflation data was stronger than the market wanted to see. So at 6.4%, that kind of raised the expectations that the U.S. Federal Reserve isn't finished with interest rate hikes that are higher than the market wants. And so therefore, the U.S. dollar went up and stocks went down most places.
Dramatic end to the business news there. Thank you, Nona. Nona Peltier with Business News. We are standing very by for the Prime Minister, Chris Hipkins, who is going to update the country on the situation with the state of emergency. We're going to go live to Parliament as soon as that happens. But in the meantime, some other information for you. If you are in the Tairawhiti area, Cyclone Gabrielle has affected air traffic control services in Gisborne. Airways New Zealand is working with the Rescue Coordination Centre, the New Zealand Defence Force, Air New Zealand and government agencies to restore aviation services into Gisborne to support search and rescue and wider recovery efforts, Airways says they anticipate that they'll be able to make limited air traffic services available to support flights in and out of Gisborne, hopefully sometime later today. The cyclone damage there means that some of their people have difficulty in safely travelling to and from the control tower. So in the coming days, air traffic service support may be limited, they say. Also, if you are just joining us, the police have updated the situation and say there are 4 people who have now been confirmed dead following the storm. Sadly, this afternoon they recovered the body of a young person who was located in Eskdale. That was shortly before 2 today. And the child is believed to have been caught in rising floodwaters yesterday. The body of a volunteer firefighter was recovered from the landslip in Wairoa earlier this afternoon. And also a person died in another landslip at a property at Matahorua Road, which is in Portorino, and that was yesterday afternoon. There is also a body that has been located on the shore in Bayview in Napier yesterday. Now, the police are saying that they have, as at 2:30 today, 1,442 people who have been registered via the Police 105 online reporting form as uncontactable. These are people that relatives are worried about, have been unable to get in touch with. Now, potentially there are some double ups there, and the police say only report an individual if you have exhausted every attempt to contact them. I think the Prime Minister now is making his way to the podium in Wellington for the update.
Good afternoon. Today I'm joined by the Minister of Energy, Megan Woods, who'll provide an update on the situation with power outages, and the Minister for Communications, Ginny Anderson, who'll provide further information on the telecommunications network. Today we are getting a better picture of the damage across the upper North Island as power is restored in some places and cell phone coverage comes back on. What is clear is that the devastation is widespread and it's taken a toll beyond property and livelihoods to people. There have been 4 confirmed fatalities as a result of the cyclone. The grief of their families and loved ones will be unimaginable. In particular, I want to acknowledge the family of the volunteer firefighter in Muriwai, whose body was recovered today. He lost his life protecting others in his community, and our thoughts are with his loved ones. Today, our immediate focus has been undertaking life-saving missions for those affected by the floods who needed to be rescued, getting telecommunications and power back on as quickly as possible, conducting aerial surveys to understand the extent of the damage and to identify where people need help, deploying emergency supplies, food, water and medicine, and getting communications assets to the areas that need them. This has been an enormous logistical effort, ably led by NEMA and the New Zealand Defence Force. We remain in an urgent response mode in the Hawke's Bay region. There are 7 outstanding requests for evacuation. None have been identified as critical. All those who were on roofs have been rescued. More than 9,000 people are expected to have been displaced across the region, with 3,000 in civil defence centres. Police report that 1,442 people are unaccounted for, mainly in the Hawke's Bay, as at 2:30 this afternoon. 1,111 people have also been reported as found, and there is likely to be a crossover between those two numbers. We expect the vast majority of these people will be accounted for. However, there are several people missing for whom police do hold grave concerns. All local bridges between Napier and Hastings are out. However, access to Hastings and Napier has been re-established for emergency services and lifeline supplies via State Highway 51. Napier and Gisborne airports were able to open again today, and Air New Zealand, in coordination with government agencies, deployed a special assistance flight carrying communications support, emergency supplies and airport operational staff into Gisborne at midday today. The New Zealand Defence Force now has over 700 personnel involved in the relief efforts, which is an increase from the 239 they had yesterday. Included in that, there are 4 aircraft, 7 helicopters, 2 ships and 58 trucks. The Army have moved logistics support teams, a logistics support team of 100 people and 30 vehicles, and they are deploying to Hawke's Bay. 3 NH90 helicopters have been conducting evacuation operations in the Hawke's Bay today. A C-130 Hercules is conducting surveillance and reconnaissance along the east coast to survey the damage and provide better information on the area in need. The HMNZS Manawanui sailed at 5 p.m. tonight from Auckland with supplies destined for Tairāwhiti, and they're expected to arrive at first light in Gisborne. They'll be bringing with them water supplies to small communities along the way. The HMNZS Tamana will sail tomorrow with personnel to Napier, supplying Wairoa with water and other essential supplies. As you know, Wairoa has been an area of particular concern for us. Today we've been able to get a member of the National Emergency Management Agency on the ground to help re-establish communications. An NH90 has moved USAR and NEMA teams with emergency military communications into Wairoa. A rapid relief team is working to provide a drop of bottled water for 3,000 people via helicopter that is planned to arrive this evening. The rapid relief team will also be establishing a barbecue in Wairoa, which will cater for approximately 3,000 people this evening. They'll start cooking as soon as supplies land, and they will keep cooking into the night until either they run out of people to feed or they run out of food. They're aiming to provide 300 to 500 food packages tomorrow morning. Tomorrow morning, the Defence Force will move a water treatment facility into Wairoa to supply drinking water, with the HMNZS Tamana delivering further drinking water, and a FENS USAR team will also be on board to further assist emergency services. I know the need in the affected communities is great, and we are doing all that we can across a major response effort to get the support and supplies to where they are needed the most. I want to acknowledge the efforts of all those involved in what is shaping up to be a protracted response and recovery effort. I'll now hand over to Minister Woods.
Thank you, Prime Minister. Good evening. Well, as you all know, there's widespread impact from the cyclone on electricity infrastructure in the North Island. Companies are working to restore electricity as quickly as possible, and we're getting regular updates on progress. Since yesterday, 65,000 households across the North Island have had power restored. This means that as of 2:30 p.m. this afternoon, there are currently 160,000 households without power. This is down from the peak of 225,000 households yesterday. There are still high winds in some places with blocked roads, making restoration unsafe or inaccessible at this point. In some places, restoration may not be able to begin until later in the week when it is safe and it is possible to do so. Lines companies in unaffected parts of the country are working together to get crews to locations where they are needed and can help. And this involves transport logistics of both personnel and equipment. The government is assisting with this through the New Zealand Defence Force to get crew and equipment up to Northland in the first instance, and looking at what support will be required in other locations as we progress. I have also asked the electricity retailers to look at whether they have people and engineering expertise that can be helped with the effort to get power transmission restored. In Hawke's Bay, with the Radcliffe substation out of action, Transpower is working on a bypass to connect the Whakatū substation to allow more customers to get reconnected. This is obviously a significant event with a level of damage to our electricity infrastructure that we have not seen since Cyclone Bowler. I know there are many people who, on top of dealing with damaged properties and no power, and in some cases it will not be clear exactly when it will be restored, but we will keep information flowing as soon as it comes to hand. I acknowledge that this can be frustrating for people and it can be upsetting. In regard to fuel, the government has set up the Fuel Sector Coordinating Entity under the National Fuel Plan, which comprises fuel companies, retailers, MB and NEMA. This is giving a picture of open fuel stations in affected areas so that local civil defence emergency management can access fuel to undertake response activities as required. The issues are not about the supply of fuel, but a result of power being off at certain stations and or an inability to access them by road, meaning that vehicles can't refuel. Fuel companies are working to bring stations back online as fast as possible and working to restock where needed as roads open safely. Fuel is considered a lifeline service for priority access through roads as they open. There's a few other points on fuel. State Highway 2 to Napier has now been open to lifeline services, including fuel, which is allowing better servicing to that region. Mini tankers are loading at Napier and supplying emergency services with diesel as it is required, and Wiri Terminal and the Marsden Point Terminal remain open and operational. Stocks also remain at good levels at both sites. The Whangarei Harbour is of course opening today, and import ships ships are scheduled to arrive tomorrow. We understand that conditions are looking favourable for their berthing on arrival. And I'll now hand over to my colleague to update on telecommunications issues.
Thank you, Minister Woods. Tēnā koutou. The three main areas that have been impacted the most for connectivity are Northland, Coromandel and Hawke's Bay, with Hawke's Bay having Napier, also Gisborne having some impacts in that space. I'd like to acknowledge the fact that our telecommunications companies are working collectively to identify what assets and obstacles are in each of these areas. There have been 5 main breaks in fibre across New Zealand. 2 of these have been restored already. Coromandel has been restored this afternoon, and also north of Taupo has been restored. In terms of Northland, the main areas that we are focusing on is to increase the generator reach. So there will be generators in place to increase those cell phone towers that have not been operating. One of the main areas we're also focusing on for Northland is to get power back up so those cell phone towers can then be activated. In terms of Coromandel, now that we have fibre restored in that area, we expect connectivity to improve over the next 48 hours. In terms of Gisborne, there have been 2 major fibre outages going into Gisborne. There are intermediary measures being made with satellite and also generators. This will provide a limited connectivity for Gisborne in the short term. That means voice and text will be installed, but further ability to use the internet will require fibre to be installed. The communications providers are working now to provide an interim measure of overlaying fibre over land to restore fibre connection to Gisborne, and we anticipate this will take a couple of days to have it in place. In terms of Napier, we are continuing with generators to provide cell phone connectivity as quickly as possible. I appreciate people will want to get in touch with loved ones. I would like to confirm that the Telecommunications Emergency Forum has been stood up and is meeting daily in order to make sure we get people connected as soon as possible.
If you are just joining us, that was a live press conference from Parliament led by the Prime Minister Chris Hipkins updating the country on the state of emergency. He started by expressing his sympathy for the families who have lost loved ones, saying that their grief must be unimaginable. An update on several services as well. 160,000 households remain without power. Lines companies in unaffected parts of the country are transferring personnel with the assistance of the Defence Force to get crews in the first instance to Northland. Northland is the priority. Fuel companies are opening up stations. Again, priority is going to be given to those tankers along roads 2. State Highway 2 to Napier has opened to Lifeline services, and fuel is considered a Lifeline service. Very quickly, 2 breaks in the fibres have been restored in Coromandel and north of Taupo, and they are saying if you live in Coromandel, you should get more connectivity. That's the expression they use. It should improve within the next 48 hours. In Tairawhiti, they are hoping to improve comms via text and voice to begin with. Internet will take longer. It is 14 minutes to 6. You're with Checkpoint on RNZ National. Thank you for joining us on this Checkpoint special. We will be with you until 7 o'clock this evening. Homai o whakaaro. Do get in touch with your feedback or questions. Anything you need to know, we'll try and find out for you. You can text us on 2101, tweet us at checkpointrnz, or the email address checkpoints@rnz.co.nz. Let's go to the headlines now. Ko Evie anō tēnei.
The Mayor of Wairoa says he doesn't think the town will be connected to Napier for many months, and people are running low on fuel and food. Craig Little told Checkpoint he's never seen devastation such as Cyclone Gabrielle has caused. He says Wairoa has about 3 to 4 days of water left, but his district is in a bad way. The death toll from the cyclone has risen to 4, with the discovery of a child's body in the Hawke's Bay settlement of Eskdale this afternoon. The child is believed to have been caught in rising water yesterday. The police also say they're gravely concerned about several people missing in Hawke's Bay and Tairawhiti. They've received more than 1,400 reports so far of people who can't be contacted across the North Island, the vast majority of them in Hawke's Bay and Tairawhiti. Power companies say their crews are working tirelessly in often hazardous conditions to restore electricity. About 165,000 North Island households remain without power. And the National Party is supporting calls for an independent inquiry into forestry practice on the East Coast. Discarded logs and debris have again caused massive damage to farms and communities after being swept up in the floodwaters. Nationals leader Christopher Luxon says some hard questions need to be asked about businesses that socialise the cost of managing their waste. Those are the headlines. Looking at traffic, things still look good in Te Waipounamu, the South Island. In the north, State Highway 2 is now open between Opotiki and Matawai. It's still closed, Matawai to Gisborne. State Highway 43, Tokirima in the Ruapehu district, has also reopened. Wakakotahi has advised that, fingers crossed, State Highway 25 around Coromandel may reopen tonight or tomorrow, subject to lots of stop-go management, just in time for those Mercury Bay whānau and farmers to get some fuel. And in Auckland, State Highway 16, the Norwestern, is still closed Waimalku to Helensville. Our next news and weather is at 6 o'clock.
Thank you, Evie. Thousands of people are stranded in Hawke's Bay without power, phone service and dwindling supplies, and many are trying in vain to contact their loved ones. Our reporter Lauren Crimp and cameraman Angus Drever are on the ground.
Driving through the district last night was eerie. A distinctly dystopian feel with no power, very few cars on the road and trees strewn everywhere. Residents spoken to at the Hastings Sports Centre this morning, where they've been evacuated, say they are lost and heartbroken. Many have been separated from whānau and are desperately trying to contact their loved ones. Rob Phillips is staying at the evacuation centre and hasn't been able to contact his whānau at home in Taradale.
Because we're from Napier and we can't get over the border back home, so we don't know what it's like over there. No, it was on my phone and everything was in my truck and I don't even know if it's still there.
He and his son were rescued by helicopter after becoming stranded in floodwaters at work on a farm. In Napier, Te Awa estate resident Karen evacuated her home early this morning and can't contact her daughters or her mum.
I dropped my phone in the water. It's not working at the minute. And my girls, I was only able to contact them at 3 o'clock this morning because they've been wondering where their mum is, and I haven't been able to tell them I was safe. And my mum's somewhere else. I don't know if she's safe.
Several supermarkets in Napier are shut, and those that are open have large queues outside. Some people have had to wait for hours to stock up essential supplies. Carol and Mary lined up.
Hopefully there's bread in there. Hopefully my smokes. Gotta have that. And water.
Back in Hastings, Nan Lee from Taradale says she was relieved to finally hear from her family.
But I still feel sorry about people can't go back home and then lose their home. Yeah.
Around 90 evacuees from Wairoa came on army trucks to the Hastings Sports Centre this afternoon. There were children and elderly carrying blankets, toys, washing baskets full of belongings. But many arrived at the centre with nothing. Hiniaya Tiamo came from Wairoa Marae, where her whānau were evacuated to after their house flooded.
Had to spend the night there, which was good. It felt safe for us. There's a lot of whānau there to comfort us, and we got the chance to get out. But our vehicles are still stuck at the marae.
She says she was most looking forward to having a wash, getting some rest and contacting her family in Wairoa. The Wairoa evacuees have been grateful for kai and shelter, but feel helpless with no information about how long they are likely to be there for. A man from another evacuation centre told RNZ he was frustrated about the lack of communication from Civil Defence, saying he had been told about evacuation centres that were locked up and empty when he arrived. He found his way to an evacuation centre by following a unimog he assumed was going to one.
And that was our reporter Lauren Crimp and cameraman Angus Drever. If you're able to view it, the video for that story will be on our webpage. And our reporter Kate Green is in Gisborne and joins us now. Kia ora, Kate. What are people's homes looking like there?
Kia ora. So homes along the Waimata River in particular, they're just inundated. They are under more than a metre of silt in some cases. Lots of neighbours are jumping in to help, people bringing around anything from shovels to diggers. a lot of those residents thought they were prepared. That seems to be the resounding message, is people thought they were prepared, and then it just turns out they weren't. So with people jumping in with the diggers, of course, that's great, and people are really appreciative, but of course those take petrol, and that's one thing that has not been able to come into the region, so that's a bit of a concern.
Yeah, and so petrol is one of the concerns. What other concerns do people have there?
So there were long queues at the supermarkets and petrol stations today. Town was gridlocked for the first part of the day. People were just really trying to stock up. Most of the stores that were open were cash only, so no FPOS. I think there are now 5 supermarkets that are accepting FPOS, we've heard, and a few petrol stations as well. Another big concern is just communication. You know, people are trying to get in touch with loved ones. The council has a Starlink connection, and they've set up a hub round the corner from the council offices, and people are allowed to go around and connect to the Wi-Fi and talk to their family. There were hundreds of people through there today, so Noel Leeming have also sold out of Starlink devices.
So in basic terms, Kate, for people who don't know, just explain really basically what that is.
A Starlink connection. So that is the brainchild of Elon Musk. So it's essentially satellite internet, really commonly used with farmers, people in bad connection spots in the country, and really useful in cases like this.
Thank you for that, Kate. That's Kate Green, our reporter in Gisborne. It is 7 minutes to 6. Kia mau tonu mai. Stay with us. You're listening to Checkpoint on RNZ National. The death toll from the cyclone has reached 4. 3 people, including a child, have died in Hawke's Bay, and a volunteer firefighter has been found dead, trapped in a house in Wairoa in Auckland. The man and another firefighter, who is currently in a critical condition, were assessing a home for flooding when the property was hit by another house that had collapsed and the pair were trapped. Now the community is reeling from the tragic loss while also grappling with their own questions of where to live and when they might be allowed back to their homes. Reporter Tom Taylor and camera operator Nick Monroe have the story.
The toll of this devastating event. A hearse travelling through the streets of the tight-knit community of Wairoa. The fire service confirming this afternoon a body has been recovered in the search for the volunteer firefighter who was trapped in a home here. Fire and Emergency Response Coordinator Vaughan Macarith expressed his sympathy for those close to him.
I acknowledge this is a really difficult time for all of us, particularly for the family and the Wairoa Volunteer Fire Brigade, as well as the entire family of Fire and Emergency.
Wairoa residents are still picking up their belongings from their houses today, also showing their support for the family of Craig Stevens, a second firefighter, still in hospital.
Yeah, he's got a lovely wife and young children, and his mother was here, and I saw them that night, and they were doing pretty well to hold it together, I must say. But yeah, I'd say they're still pretty worried.
Yako Foot lives right beside some of the houses swept away in the landslide.
We're about 2 houses down from the 2 of the houses that got completely washed away by the slips. One of my really good friends was living in one of them, and they managed to escape. He was actually outside trying to divert water with his shovel away from his house, and then he heard it give way and just had to run. And luckily his partner ran as well and grabbed their 2 kids.
Mr. Foot's own house, miraculously, appears to be unscathed, although it's yet to be assessed.
I got in there this morning and I wanted to grab my van and my tools because I'm a builder, and I figured there's going to be some houses and some retaining that needs built in the coming weeks, so I want to be useful, so probably shouldn't have gone down there, but grabbed my stuff and got out.
Police have established a cordon at the corner of Wairoa and Motutara roads, very near the slip that trapped the firefighters. Quentin Fisher lives on top of the hill at Motutara Road, directly in front of a house that fell in the slip. On Monday night, he'd woken to the sound of a landslide and immediately got his family out of their house.
As we drove out our driveway, we got told to turn around and move on the other side because we need to evacuate, and as we did that, the other slide happened, so it's been pretty horrific. There's lots of damage, and yeah, it's just been a bit of a apocalyptic, I guess, in the last couple of 48 hours or so.
Access to Wairoa remains tightly controlled while building assessors carry out investigations for safety. However, Mr. Fisher and his family were allowed in to collect a few essential belongings before heading on to their temporary lodgings.
We're going to stay with some mates down in Wairoa Valley. We hope that they'll assess our property in the next 2 days and get some power back there, and then see if we can help anyone in the community that's not as fortunate as us.
Jeff and Jackie Kindred live down the bottom of the hill on Domain Crescent. Another landslide came hurtling through their property, sparing their house, but sending their garage crashing into a neighbour's unit.
We walked around the house in our ski jacket and pants and didn't know if we're safer in or out, kind of thing. Yeah.
And then in the end we went out, tried to get down our road, and there'd been a slip, so we had to go back up the hill, down some steps, which was pretty much like Niagara Falls, and got out. This is at 1 o'clock in the morning. The winds were probably hitting 100 k's.
Now, the Kindreds are staying with Jackie's mum in a retirement village while they wait to learn the fate of their home.
We've been in our house for 30-odd years. We had it looking really good. So, it's just the journey ahead. It's going to be pretty tough.
Jeff worked in construction for many years and says it may be many months before their access is restored. A statement from Auckland Transport also suggests a long road ahead, saying that the damage to West Auckland's roading network is the worst they've ever seen. As of this afternoon, there were 75 roads closed across Auckland, and Auckland Transport can't yet provide a timeframe for access to its western beaches to be restored.
Again, if you're listening to that on radio, there is a video version. We'll put it on our website if you're able to access it. In terms of your feedback and questions, Tracy has got in touch and says, we have family inland from Tiniroto and we can't find out if they're okay. How do we get in touch with them? It is very distressing. Any help would be appreciated. Tracy, the police have updated the situation with people you believe are missing or uncontactable. Here is their advice. They say try and contact them through all the usual methods first: phone number, email, social media, any pre-planned emergency meeting places, all that kind of stuff. Exhaust all options. When you have done that, they say you can fill out a form if you have genuine concerns for their safety, and you can do that via the 105 online form. So you go to the page and the form is there, and that is formspolice.gov.nz, and you can fill out a form there. They say that they are redeploying more than 70 staff from the Bay of Plenty, Central Wellington, Tasman, Canterbury and Southern districts, as well as from the Police College to Hawke's Bay and Tairāwhiti in the next 48 hours.
RNZ News at 6 o'clock. Ngā mihi o te pō. Good evening. I'm Evie Ashton. 4 people have died as a result of Cyclone Gabrielle. The body of a child was found in Eskdale near Napier this afternoon, and another body was recovered from a landslide in Muriwai in West Auckland today. Another person died in a landslip in Putorino in northern Hawke's Bay yesterday afternoon, and near Napier, a body was found on the shore yesterday. Police say they have grave concerns for several people missing in the flood-stricken Hawke's Bay and Tairāwhiti regions. They say they've received more than 1,400 reports of people uncontactable across the North Island in the wake of Cyclone Gabrielle. Most reports are from the Hawke's Bay and Tairāwhiti. Police expect many of the reports to be the result of communication lines being down. There are 111 reports of people who were uncontactable and who are now safe. Police say as communications come back online, they anticipate an increase in the reports of missing people, found people, damage to property and demand for basic resources. A Hawke's Bay family fears for the life of a friend who's still missing after being swept away in floodwaters. The Beekmans are in Auckland, unable to get back to their Esk Valley property, which has been wrecked by the cyclone. Their friend Gareth and his girlfriend were house-sitting for them. Mike Beekman told Checkpoint the couple smashed their way into the ceiling space to get away from the rapidly rising water, but a 40-foot container crashed into the building, taking off the front half of the house.
We think he lost his girlfriend that night. She disappeared underwater. She disappeared under the house, and she's been missing. And things aren't looking great.
Mike Beekman says Gareth is injured in hospital. The Mayor of Wairoa says he doesn't think they'll be connected to Napier for many months, and they're running low on fuel and food. Craig Little told Checkpoint he's never seen devastation like the aftermath of this cyclone.
We're running low on fuel, we're running low on food, so without fuel we can't clear the roads. So we're in a bad way. and luckily we've got about 4 days of water left.
Craig Little says the supermarket in Wairoa probably has about 2 to 3 days worth of food left, and the council is hoping the road to Gisborne can be opened in the next few days, which would give them access to the port. He says they're looking at the possibility of having to helicopter supplies like food in. The Prime Minister says emergency services remain in urgent response mode in Hawke's Bay. Chris Hipkins says there are 7 outstanding requests for evacuation in the region. He says Wairoa has been an area of particular concern.
A rapid relief team is working to provide a drop of bottled water for 3,000 people via helicopter that is planned to arrive this evening. The rapid relief team will also be establishing a barbecue in Wairoa, which will cater for approximately 3,000 people this evening. They'll start cooking as soon as supplies land, and they will keep cooking into the night until either they run out of people to feed or they run out of food.
Chris Hipkins says 300 to 500 food packages will be dropped in Wairoa tomorrow. A water treatment facility will also be delivered by the Defence Force. More power is available to reconnect cut-off households in Tairāwhiti than the damaged lines can handle. Transpower says enough power is available for 30,000 homes, but so far Eastland Network is taking enough for 24,000, indicating lines are damaged. In Hawke's Bay, lines company Unison is taking enough to power 38,000 homes, up substantially from this morning. Transpower says it aims to get more power to its Whakatū substation in place of the damaged Redcliffe substation to supply Unison. It says it's been assessing the damage to Redcliffe since getting back in this afternoon. Fire and Emergency has confirmed that a body retrieved from a Muriwai landslide is a missing firefighter from the local volunteer fire brigade. FENS says flags will be flown at half-mast on all fire stations to acknowledge his death. The firefighter is understood to be Dave van Swanenberg. He was trapped in the wreckage of a house that collapsed on Motutara Road on Monday night. Auckland Emergency Management has contacted a private helicopter to help deliver supplies to the region's coastal communities cut off by road. It delivered food and welfare supplies to the Karekare community this afternoon. Response teams have also been dropped in the area to undertake welfare checks. And Waka Kotahi says travel to and from the Coromandel should be possible from tomorrow morning, providing the roads don't deteriorate further. Large slips have limited access to State Highway 2 through the Karangahake Gorge and around State Highway 25. Roads may still be slippery due to mud, and debris still remains. That's the news.
Tonight on Nights, as Cyclone Gabrielle moves away from the country, we'll keep you up to date with all the information you need to know, as well as our usual programming. Crowd Science tries to solve the problem. Why does the thought of public speaking fill so many with terror? And there could be a few people shaking in their boots when Hayden Donnell hands out the bouquets and the brickbats for Midweek Media Watch. Stay connected on Nights with Karen Hay after the news at 7 on RNZ National.
And we're funded through New Zealand On Air. You're back with Elisa Owen next on Checkpoint. Right now, the short forecast from Met Service to midnight Thursday. Northland to Taranaki, including the Central High Country, Bay of Plenty, Gisborne and Hawke's Bay. Mainly fine, with isolated showers. Thunderstorms and localised downpours possible from tomorrow afternoon, especially about the ranges of Gisborne and Hawke's Bay. For Whanganui and from Taihape to Wellington, also for Wairarapa, isolated showers, but periods of rain for Wellington and Wairarapa today. Rain for all those areas tomorrow with heavy falls for southern Wairarapa and the eastern hills of Wellington. Nelson and Buller, cloudy periods, isolated showers, clearing tomorrow evening. Marlborough and Canterbury, periods of rain, mainly north of Methven with some heavy falls. Rain easing tomorrow morning and clearing foremost in the afternoon. Westland and Fiordland, fine weather for you. Otago and Southland, partly cloudy, patchy drizzle developing tonight, but staying dry about central Otago. And for Kohu, Chatham Islands, periods of rain, possibly heavy today. It's 6 minutes past 6. I'll have news headlines for you at 6:30.
Kia ora rā e ho. No mai hoki mai, this is Checkpoint, ko Lisa Owen tēnei. We'll be with you until 7 o'clock this evening in this extended Checkpoint special. Cyclone Gabrielle has gone, but her legacy is the most catastrophic weather event in living memory. She's left parts of the upper North Island resembling parts of a jigsaw. Wairoa is essentially an island, disconnected from the outside world with food and water in short supply. Gisborne, Hawke's Bay, much of Coromandel and parts of Northland and some parts of Auckland's west coast beaches are cut off. Tens of thousands of residents are without power or cell phone coverage. A short time ago, Prime Minister Chris Hipkins held a media conference and paid tribute to the Auckland volunteer firefighter and others who have lost their lives.
Today, our immediate focus has been undertaking life-saving missions for those affected by the floods who needed to be rescued, getting telecommunications and power back on as quickly as possible, conducting aerial surveys to understand the extent of the damage and to identify where people need help, deploying emergency supplies, food, water and medicine, and getting communications assets to the areas that need them. This has been an enormous logistical effort, ably led by NEMA and the New Zealand Defence Force. We remain in an urgent response mode in the Hawke's Bay region. There are 7 outstanding requests for evacuation. None have been identified as critical. All those who were on roofs have been rescued. More than 9,000 people are expected to have been displaced across the region, with 3,000 in civil defence centres. Police report that 1,442 people are unaccounted for, mainly in the Hawke's Bay, as at 2:30 this afternoon. 1,111 people have also been reported as found, and there is likely to be a crossover between those two numbers. We expect the vast majority of these people will be accounted for. However, there are several people missing for whom police do hold grave concerns. All local bridges between Napier and Hastings are out. However, access to Hastings and Napier has been re-established for emergency services and lifeline supplies via State Highway 51. Napier and Gisborne airports were able to open again today, and Air New Zealand, in coordination with government agencies, deployed a special assistance flight carrying communications support, emergency supplies and airport operational staff into Gisborne at midday today. The New Zealand Defence Force now has over 700 personnel involved in the relief efforts, which is an increase from the 239 they had yesterday. Included in that, there are 4 aircraft, 7 helicopters, 2 ships and 58 trucks. The Army have moved logistics support teams, a logistics support team of 100 people and 30 vehicles, and they are deploying to Hawke's Bay. 3 NH90 helicopters have been conducting evacuation operations in the Hawke's Bay today. A C-130 Hercules is conducting surveillance and reconnaissance along the east coast to survey the damage and provide better information on the area in need. The HMNZS Manawanui sailed at 5 p.m. tonight from Auckland with supplies destined for Tairāwhiti, and they're expected to arrive at first light in Gisborne. They'll be bringing with them water supplies to small communities along the way.
Prime Minister Chris Hipkins there, and we'll be with you until 7 o'clock tonight with the latest from around the country. But let's go first to our reporter Lauren Crimp, who joins us now from the Civil Defence Centre in Hastings. Kia ora, Lauren, what's the focus for Civil Defence there?
Kia ora, Lisa. Yes, I was speaking to the Group Controller Ian McDonald earlier. There are a couple of key focuses. One of the big ones is roads. Now, he's saying State Highway 51 may be open within 12 to 24 hours to get people through, as you will, and that's reconnecting, that would be reconnecting Napier and Hastings. At the moment, roads between Napier and Hastings are only available for emergency services and lifeline supplies, as you heard the Prime Minister talk to earlier. The other one is power. Again, as you heard, they're working really, really hard to restore power here, and then getting emergency supplies through to Wairoa, which remains completely cut off.
And so what has been happening at evacuation centres?
Yeah, we were at the Hastings Sports Centre today, which is an evacuation centre just around the corner from where I am now at the Civil Defence Centre. There have been people flowing throughout the day. While we were there earlier, 6 army trucks arrived. They had rescued about 90 people from Wairoa Marae, which was an evacuation centre that became completely flooded in its surrounds. People are showing up with blankets, toys, belongings, but some with absolutely nothing. And the stories, Lisa, are just heartbreaking. People have lost everything. They report feeling lost, heartbroken, and simply exhausted from the events of the last 48 hours.
And then there is the very basic stuff that you still have to deal with, isn't there? What is the situation with the drinking water?
Yeah, now this is really important. We've heard there's been some confusion about drinking water. It is safe to drink in the Hawke's Bay region. There is one area where water does need to be boiled, and that is Te Pōhui. Aside from that, it is safe to drink. So people can rest easy and get their drinking water if they're not able to get to supermarkets and buy bottled water.
Thank you for the update, Lauren. That's Lauren Crimp, who's joining us live there from the Civil Defence Centre in Hastings. Now, we know a lot of you have got problems with the internet and trying to find out what roads are usable and what aren't. So with communications out in many areas, for those of you who are relying on us for that information, here is a list of the closed main roads. It's not the full list, but here's the list of the closed main roads in Hawke's Bay and Northland, starting with Hawke's Bay. State Highway 2, Napier to Gisborne. State Highway 4, Raitahi to Pukonaro. State Highway 5, Napier to Taupo. State Highway 35, Hicks Bay to Gisborne. State Highway 51, Napier to Clive. State Highway 51 between Napier Road and Elwood Road. State Highway 50, Expressway Napier to Hastings. State Highway 50, Takapau to Hastings. Now to Northland, State Highway 12, Tahiki to Dargaville. State Highway 15, Mongatapiri to Twin Bridges. State Highway 14, Dargaville to Mongatapiri. These are closed. And State Highway 1, Mangamoka Gorge, closed also. So those are the main closed roads. Hawke's Bay to Northland there. Gisborne residents have been urged to conserve water with the main supply damaged in the storm. Tairāwhiti Civil Defence Controller Ben Green is with us now. Kia ora, Ben. Can you bring us up to date with the latest, please, in your district?
Yeah, kia ora. Certainly very much still in the aspect of trying to deal with the priorities, particularly relating to key utilities for Gisborne. I guess as a region, trying to work on also the fact that geographically isolated, given the state highways and the inability at this stage to get them restored for access. So quite a few things going on. Also with the key utilities, I mean, the damage to the water treatment plants obviously a major concern.
Are you still asking people to conserve, Ben? What should they do around water?
Oh, absolutely. If they don't change behaviour, and we've just issued managed to get a print run for the Gisborne Herald with a foot delivery of the newspaper to take that message to households. We can't and don't have cell phone or the ability to directly communicate with people. And really that message is you need to, as a community, come together, look at the key focus, particularly in terms of conservation. If that's not really put in place or we're not seeing the demand reduce, we certainly run the risk of running out of water in the city.
Can you see whether people have eased off on water consumption?
We've issued the article's gone out this afternoon. We've had a volunteer army in the sense of taking that and doing a direct street-to-street, letterbox-to-letterbox drop. And I guess we'll soon see in terms of what they're measuring at the treatment plant. So what they're trying to do is produce enough capacity to restore the storage into the main reservoirs within the city. So I guess we'll get a better idea as we head into this evening and tomorrow.
What about food and essentials? Supermarkets, are they open? Are people able to use their cards for transactions?
In a limited capacity, we've had to look at expedient options to restore data. In the most part, that's sort of via Starlink terminals and working with the local technician just to get Wi-Fi access for point of sale transactions. It's certainly limited. Equally, we have fill stations that have restrictions, but they're at this stage cash only, given that we don't have enough equipment to really support them to do electronic transactions.
That's pretty difficult for people if they don't have cash in their back pockets.
Oh, look, it's extremely difficult. We're in a cashless society, so when you're asking for legal tender by way of cash to be used, that creates problems. But equally, recognising that as well, we've been working with the business community, which includes the banks, around the ability to try and support or activate a couple of ATMs, and being able to manage that with the ability to allow whānau to get access to cash. So
you have
on the drawing board.
You still don't have ATMs to draw money out. That's something you're still working on, Ben?
Anything that requires data at the moment, and it's not running on a satellite terminal, right down to households, we don't have people connected in that regard.
So, on that note then, cell phone and communications. We were told at the Prime Minister's press conference that it is a priority to try and get you guys at least voice and text. What have you been told about when you might get some more comms for people living in Tairawhiti?
We've got from the national planning, this is the national coordination, so I think what the Prime Minister has put out, it certainly is the key focus. What that kit looks like, it's certainly there's various options, but we're just looking to confirm, I think for C-130, that's possibly in tonight, whether that's got a mobile, in essence a mobile cell tower, that and how that's used, I'm really not too sure the overall technical area coverage or specifications, but it'll certainly alleviate some of the ability to get people connected.
Really appreciate your time, Ben. Thank you so much. That is Ben Green, Tairawhiti Civil Defence Controller there. Potentially, maybe, easing in the communications difficulties later this evening if they're able to get that equipment delivered tonight, as he was talking about. 19 minutes past 6, and you're with Checkpoint on RNZ National. In a whetū on Auckland's Manukau Heads, it's a story that's becoming sadly familiar. Many people are still without power and major slips have closed roads, isolating residents. Our reporter Louise Tanuth joins us now from a whetū. Louise, what are the roads looking like up there?
Well, Lisa, there are many major slips still out here in our whetū. We've been out today surveying some of those damages to the roads, and many of them remain cordoned off. There's been trees uprooted, debris has been coating the roads, and teams have been working hard to get those cleared. But two of the major roads that have been affected is Kemp Road, which is fully cordoned off to the public with trees uprooted all throughout that road there. And the main road, which is the Manukau Heads Road to the lighthouse in this area, has had a major slip. I think it's about the biggest slip we've seen today out surveying some of that damage. And that's the main road to the lighthouse there. Now, we went and took a look at that this afternoon, and engineers were there also looking at that damage. But yeah, it's one of the biggest ones we've seen today and has cut off people on the other side of that slip.
And what about those without power? How are they faring?
Yeah, so there's still many people in the area here who remain cut off and have no power. We couldn't get any clear numbers from Counties Power, but what we do know is it's mainly the hardest to reach areas like Wairoa and Wattle Bay. Now, I spoke to one of the blueberry owners in the area today, and she told me that they've been without power and Wi-Fi since Sunday night, and they've been working throughout the day and night to clear some of that debris on their driveway, which has cut them off from Wattle Bay Road there. Here's what she had to say.
And Louise, I'm just wondering, can you tell us a bit about when the power's likely?
Yeah, so we've seen many counties' power vans in and around the area today, and what they've told us is that they're working hard to get those beach end areas like Wairoa and Wattle Bay connected first, so they're top of the list. But there's a lot of damage in the area, so there's no guarantee on when that may be, and residents are being told to remain prepared to be without power for the next few days. There's no guarantee that it'll be back on tonight.
Thank you, Louise. Our reporter Louise Tanuth there live. Some Dargaville residents are being urged to evacuate their homes. The Kaipara District Council says people who live along River Road and Victoria and Logan Streets, as well as side streets in Finlayson Park Avenue, are strongly advised to leave. Shelter is available at the Anglican Church in Hokianga Street. It's been one of the worst hit towns, and despite the fresh evacuations, some in other areas of town have been allowed to return home. Felix Walton reports.
When the cyclone struck on Sunday, Reverend Frank Nelson was approached to open his church as an evacuation centre. The Holy Trinity Anglican Church sheltered as many as 80 people at the peak of the storm, and 20 slept there last night.
People are working together wonderfully. People arrive, pot of soup, a fresh batch of muffins. People phoned up and said, we'll bring breakfast. A lot of the people who are here are just, I guess, stunned. They'd never expected to have to move.
Reverend Nelson says the church quickly filled up, but as more evacuees arrived, the council opened 2 more centres. Anthony Thompson of Te Runanga o Ngāti Whātua says his iwi has been helping people throughout Northland, but Dargaville has become the priority.
The evac centre filled up really quick over at the church, so we opened up one of our sites at Ngāti Whātua, Te Hāoranga, and we took in about 25 to 30 whānau.
Mr Thompson says he is grateful that so many people in the region were prepared for the cyclone.
Yes, we've been impacted heavily along our marae areas, but because of the previous floods, a lot of Aucklanders and a lot of our whānau have been prepared. So yes, they were without power, yes, without phones, but they had their go packs, which was really successful.
But the damage is vast and the recovery will be long. Dairy and Coomera farmer Graham Lawrence says the cyclone was devastating.
Most of our farm's gone under. We've got probably about 80% of the farm has been underwater. It was a challenge enough this year to grow any crops at all. The whole Coomera area of Dargaville has been heavily affected. It was already half the volume growing anyway because of the conditions, so there's going to be some huge shortages.
For 2 days, Mr Lawrence was trapped in his home by floodwaters.
Our driveway was a metre underwater, so we were isolated. Milk tanker hasn't been able to come in. Had to dump yesterday's milk.
The sun has come out today, but Mr Lawrence says it's a double-edged sword. The silt that now covers his farm will dry and his crops will suffocate.
The sun's come out and things are drying, but then it also bakes the silt to the grass, which creates another problem that the plants can't get the sunlight. The silt baked on the plants will make the plants rot.
Reverend Nelson says others are just relieved to see the storm move on.
There's a surprisingly good mood. People are resigned, hoping to get back home. The wind has dropped, the sun is shining. It's a different world. It's hard to believe the change actually from yesterday. So people will be out today, tidying up, mopping up.
The Kaipara District Council says the emergency centre will remain open for those who need it.
Let's return now to the East Coast. Paramedics and rescue helicopters have been up and down the East Coast today, dropping off supplies and assessing the welfare of residents cut off. State Highway 35 from Gisborne to Hicks Bay is still closed, and many other roads are down up the coast with no way in or out. Ko taku hoa I nai nei, ko Mani Dunlop. Mani Dunlop joins us now from Gisborne. Tēnā koe, Mani. You've been up in a helicopter. Tell us what you've seen.
Tēnā koe, Lisa. Tēnā koe tō katoa. Yeah, I've been on an aeroplane on air to Atoria. But look, we've just literally landed and we did a good flight up the coast. And to put it quite frankly, in some of the locals' words and those who we saw, the coast is absolutely buggered. It's been annihilated. It's a beautiful sunny day here today, but the devastation that you can see on the roads, on that Hikuwai bridge, that Hikuwai River breached the record of Bowler just a couple of weeks ago in Cyclone Hail. It broke another record when it breached the banks again and went higher than 13.5 metres. And you can see what it did and what it left in the wake of that. A massive bridge on State Highway 35 has completely been washed away. means there's no access for people up and down the coast into Gisborne, as well as a lot of little bridges of kind of more isolated roads are also cut off, but that's really not the community as well. We stopped into a tour to have a chat with some of the locals there while we was there were two helicopters that came in. On the helicopters were paramedics, one from St John's. They had just come over from Tauranga. They were doing a supply drop-off, medical supply drop-off, and then they were going to go back to Wairoa, which obviously, as everyone would have been hearing, is also in need of support. Another helicopter, Tairāwhiti rescue helicopter, happened to be dropping off medical supplies while someone who had popped their knee out while trying to change their mum's tyre on their truck had down to the township of Ruatoria to try and find some help. Luckily, they saw an ambulance. The ambulance said, look, a helicopter's going to be coming soon. We'll just take a click to get back. The helicopter and taken it to the hospital. But who was on the rescue helicopter was Gina Shaffi-Opodi. Now, she's pretty famous up here. And formidable, she is a nurse, but they had been up and down the coast dropping off those medical supplies, as you said in your intro, Lisa. I asked her, how bad is it? You've been here a long time, you were here for Ebola. It is the worst that we've seen. However, she did want to reiterate everyone is doing well. Welfare is okay and good. People are getting, in terms of the medical emergency supplies, they are getting them. So for a lot of those who have not been able to get in touch, no power, no water, no cell reception except for some pockets in Ruatoria, whānau haven't been able to contact their loved ones who are out there. But I wanted to reassure everyone is good, everyone is fine, they are getting what they need. But the issue now is, Lisa, of the longevity of those supplies, how long it'll take, how long it'll be until they need that and when those roads will be fixed. We saw Waka Kotahi, some contractors, I know the officials were in the air today, but there were contractors we could see from the air on the ground, and a lot of those slips, there were some old slips that have been worsened because of Cyclone Gabrielle, but there are brand new ones, and the East Cape Road is completely cut off as well to the lighthouse. That's not new, but it is quite common, but it's much worse than I've seen in previous years. So that's essentially a sum up of what we've seen, Lisa. But yeah, it is a bit of a mess. The resilience of the community is always showing, but it's people are, to be quite honest, they're over it. They don't necessarily, some communities, so I spoke to one mum and she goes, look, I've got no cash, I've got no money to access food, so I'm relying on kai parcels from the community in Ruatoria. So how long that will last, we don't know, but they are getting what they need at the moment.
Ngā mihi mō te wā, ho, thank you for joining us. That's Marnie Dunlop, who has been up in a plane flying over the coast there above Gisborne, Tokomaru Bay, Ruatoria, etc. And she says it's pretty devastating looking at the damage, as you would have heard there. It is time to go to the headlines now. And apologies for the phone line. We're battling the same communication issues. Evie is standing by. Ko Evie anō tēnei.
The police have grave concerns for hundreds of people who have still not been contacted in the flood-stricken Hawke's Bay and Tairāwhiti regions. Meanwhile, the death toll from Cyclone Gabrielle has risen to 4, with the discovery of a child's body in the Hawke's Bay settlement of Eskdale this afternoon. Across the North Island, the Defence Force now has more than 700 people involved in cyclone recovery efforts. There are 4 aircraft, 7 helicopters, 2 ships and 58 trucks. Those are the headlines. Our next news and weather is at 7 o'clock.
Ngā mihi, Evie. Let's go now to the Coromandel town of Tairua, where some locals are now facing a 4th night cut off without power. Our reporter Leonard Powell is there. And Lenny, it's not just power that's a problem, is it?
Kia ora, Lisa, that's right. Power is starting to come back, and a lot of people are stoked about it. The mood in the town's really lifting as the Power company brings power back to a lot of the town. But the water is still the big issue here. Now, earlier today, the Community Response Group put out a message that the town water supply was down to just 3%, which is a critical level. Without power to use their treatment system, that was only going to get lower and lower. So they're still urging people, despite power coming back to a lot of the town and more of the town as the day goes on in the last couple of hours, they're still urging people to really conserve water. Don't be flushing your toilet unless you really need to. And also, no showers, no using the taps. Just do what you can, and they're going to keep that in place until further notice, because there's concerns when the water does come back that there's going to be sediment in it and it will need boiling. So that's also the message down here with the water, and that's for Tairua and Pawanui. And the wastewater operators are asking people, not to flush the toilet. The wastewater system hasn't been able to pump like it usually would, and that's definitely causing some concerns here. So while the power's coming back and the moods are lifting, the water is remaining at this stage a real concern.
And so what is the situation with the roads still? Are you still cut off, Lenny?
So I at this point, like I heard Gary Towler earlier, the road, State Highway 25A, is still cut off. He mentioned optimistic that it will be opening later today. That I heard 16 slips between Hikuai and Onimana, which is including some slips that were sort of described as slow slips, which were still occurring, making it quite dangerous. So people are working on that road. I took a drive to the north side of Tairua over Pumpkin Hill to Hahei, and there's some serious water damage slips on that road, but it is passable. So people were coming through town from Whitianga looking to pass through, but getting turned around at the Prescott service station at Pauanui, if people know the area. That was sort of the point where people were reaching. So a lot of people wanting to get out of town. There's people who need chemotherapy. There's people who have international flights and that sort of thing. So it has been the local Facebook page has been non-stop with people wondering if they can leave. Yesterday, some people did leave, and I heard this morning might have been the same. But I hear the road is dangerous, and there's stop-go people in place now. Tomorrow morning there'll be stop-go people in place. All things going well, but they've been turning people around today.
And so, Lenny, I've just been, while I've talking to you, looking at some of your pictures, which looks like, shelves of stores that are empty and the like. How are people coping? They've been quite a while, some of them, fourth day, right, without power, and now water's in short supply. How are they doing?
Well, surprisingly, definitely today people were feeling a little more tense and strung out around town. There's sort of the frustration. It's getting old, and they were ready for the power to come back on, sort of like Marnie was saying. People are ready for it to be over. But I can definitely say people were still coming into the Four Square stocking up. I don't think supplies in this area have been an issue for the last few days because people have been able to come and get what they need. And I can say that the Unimob, the army truck, came through and dropped off a massive load of supplies and water bottles this afternoon, and that was definitely a welcome sight for locals, even though the power came back on shortly after that. But I'd say that the mood around town's definitely lifting, Lisa. A very resilient bunch, as I talked about yesterday, and people are, everybody's got each other's back, and they're getting on with the cleanup now.
Thank you for that, Leonard. That's Leonard Powell joining us from Tairua. And just some more detail on road access to the Coromandel and Karangahake Gorge. Waka Kotahi says that travel to and from the Coromandel should be possible by tomorrow morning, providing there's no further deterioration on the network. In addition, State Highway 2 between Wairoa and Waihi through the Karangahake Gorge should reopen by nightfall, restoring a key route in the East Waikato. Now, they say that contractors have made tremendous progress, clearing a large number of slips on State Highway 2 through the gorge and around State Highway 25, which is the peninsula's key thoroughfare. And they say that Coromandel to Thames and Hikuai to Whangamata should have one lane open to vehicles by the morning, but extreme caution still being advised. The road may still be slippery due to mudslips, and there may still be small amounts of debris on the road. So they're asking people to follow all directions from traffic management that'll be there and drive to the sign-posted speed limits. Contractors hope to have the slip at Koatuna on State Highway 25 cleared and the highway reopened there as soon as possible. So potentially some good news for access in and out of the Coromandel and also the Karangahake Gorge there. The small community of Aotea Great Barrier Island is in clean-up mode after copping it from Cyclone Gabrielle on Monday. The local board chair is Izzy Fordham, and she joins us now. Izzy, how is the island? Did you get much damage?
Kia ora, Lisa. Nice to hear from you. Yes, we did, especially with our roading infrastructure that really took a hiding. Fortunately, people are safe. Nobody lost their home, and even more important, nobody lost their lives. So it's our roading infrastructure that's really taking a hammering.
Tell me a bit more about that, ports, landslips, road access.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so we suffered considerable amount of road slips, just absolute road collapsing, and also the land slips coming down across the roads. Our wharf, we have 3 wharfs here on Aotea, at the moment, Shoal Bay Wharf in Tryphena, which is our main freight one, the road to that wharf is out of action for heavy trucks, and the same with the one in Fitzroy as well. The road is just not up to handling heavy trucks. So we're down to using our Whangaparapara wharf at the moment, and even the access to that is a little bit dodgy. So we've got plans and processes in place around that. A lot of trees came down. We lost a few beautiful, old, mature Pahudakawa. So we're literally in that recovery clean-up mode, as you rightly said.
So given the main wharf has got a few access problems, where and how is food coming in? Is he stocks?
Okay. I did a roundup with the local stores and welfare organisation yesterday, so they were still well stocked. There will be freight coming in tomorrow, and that will come in at Whangaparapara, and there's a traffic plan in place with that with our local police. So that's good news. There'll be further supplies coming in. Today was the first day that we've seen aeroplanes come in since Saturday. So they will be bringing in freight and other things like the mail and any medications and stuff like that. So we are well and truly sort of starting to bounce back as a community.
The other thing, obviously, we've been talking to a lot of districts who have had problems. Well, they're out of power, right? You know, no power, no comms. You guys are a little bit different. Tell us about how you have fared there.
Yeah, we certainly are a little bit different in more ways than one, Lisa. We do have alternative energy here because we're off the grid. We're totally off the grid. So everybody is responsible for their own power supply, their own septic and waste systems, and also water. So in one respect, we have fared much better than some people in far more isolated communities on the mainland. So that hasn't been an issue. I'm very surprised and touch wood that the comm system with mobile networks and landline phones has held up very well in most areas.
When you talk about the roads, and I have seen some pictures, and you have taken a hammering, and there's some, pretty broken up roads there. Are you able to do the repairs locally? Are you going to need reinforcements? Are people coming over to help you?
Okay, so we do have a Fulton Hogan local crew here on the island who have worked absolutely tirelessly, along with our other contractors and arborists during this time. At the moment, we've got one of their ops managers here that's sort of assessing things, and we're expecting an engineer over later this week to also do an assessment, and then I guess those guys who are the experts will be planning the process going forward.
Really appreciate your time, Izzy. I think there's probably some lessons we can learn from Aotea Great Barrier there. That is the local board chair, Izzy Fordham, letting us know how the island fared there. They took quite a hammering, roads damaged, but interestingly, they have alternative power sources, so no problems there. A Hawke's Bay lumberyard and sawmill that employs hundreds of locals has been completely swamped, with the last workers on site carried to safety on a large loader. Pampac on State Highway 2 at Whirinaki employs more than 400 people, with hundreds more working as contractors. Right now, though, workers are being told to stay safe and stay away, with the company saying it will cover employees' wages. But Managing Director Tony Clifford says getting the message out has been tough, and they can't even check the damage yet.
Obviously, we haven't at this point been able to get anyone onto the site. We're attempting to get a small team of 4 or 5 engineers onto the site later on this afternoon, but there's still significant amount of debris on the road north of the Esk Bridge, so between the Esk River Bridge and our site entrance. We have been able to get some photographs from people who were on the site, stationed over there overnight on Monday, and which we've recovered. We've evac'd everyone off the site as of Tuesday evening.
How did you get them out, Tony?
We used one of our what we call one of our large wheeled loaders. So we used one of those and drove that around the site and with people in the cab, and got them down to the Esk Bridge by getting around all the debris, and then they were able to walk over the Esk Bridge, and then we recovered them by a 4-wheel drive vehicle on the other side of the bridge. So yeah, we've got everyone safely off the site now as of 7 p.m. last night, and I guess our call out here to those 6 or 7 people who were on the site for 24 hours, keeping an eye on things for us. But
What
really
did they tell you? What did they tell you about the condition and how much water was flowing through at that point?
It was a river. We've had over 2 metres of water through most of the sites. So I guess to put it in perspective, 4-wheel drive utes fully submerged right over the roof, completely submerged, and a significant amount of silt and debris has come into the site from the surrounding region. And yeah, it's going to take a significant clean-up opportunity. But, you know, we've started today. It's day one. We've had our sort of first management team this morning, team meeting. We've been really fortunate. The Port of Napier has opened their doors to us and provided us with meeting rooms and Wi-Fi emergency power. And so we're basically putting together a recovery package now.
You guys are a significant employer, right? Just tell people who don't know, how many people would work there and what happens to them during this time?
Your direct employees, we've got over 440 direct employees at the Whirinaki operation, right across, you know, from our corporate support right through to our pulp, lumber operations and all our forestry support. But we have another 400 contractors who support our forestry operations and log cartage. So yeah, right at the moment, our simple message to them is don't come to the site. Even if you've got vehicles, private vehicles or trucks, don't come to the site. They have been completely submerged. You're not going to be able to get access to them. You know, the next thing is we're telling people, you know, look after yourselves, get yourself sorted, and get in contact with us if there's anything we can do to help our employees out. But look, it is very much unknown at this stage. There's absolutely no question. We will recover the site. We'll get it up and running again. As I said to you yesterday, you know, we've been through some other difficult times. We were impacted by a flood just prior the year before Cyclone Bowler. Not quite to the extent that we've experienced yesterday, but you know, we've got a pretty capable team. We've got very, very comprehensive insurance packages in place, both for material damage and business interruption, and we'll be calling on those to restore all of our operations.
I don't want to put you on the spot, but I know workers will be worried about this. The ones that are directly employed by you, do you have insurances? Will their wages be covered?
Yes, no, we've already communicated that to them on Monday evening that yeah, basically payments can be made, and we're actually hopefully getting our payroll system paid through today to them. But yeah, I guess again, people, if they are listening to that, our employees, we're trying to get in contact with as many as possible. We're using all forms, emails, our Teams Messenger, SMS, and our Modica SMS alert system. So no one single channel seems to work better than another. So we're using everything we've got, including Radio New Zealand. So thanks very much for that.
You're welcome. It is a bit of a nightmare trying to get messages out and contact people, isn't it, to let them know what's going on?
Oh, yeah, look, and the other key thing is this is not a Pan-Pac issue. This is a Hawke's Bay-wide issue. So, yeah, as a business, we've suffered significant damage, but we're very, very well aware that there's been a lot of personal loss, both in terms of home and property and other small businesses. You know, infrastructure in Hawke's Bay has been really, really tested. I don't know if you'd call it a 1 in 100-year event, but it's certainly greater than a 1 in 50-year event. And, you know, most of our infrastructure resilience is designed around a 1 in 50-year event, and it's certainly exceeded that. You know, probably where the number of bridges that have been taken out, the houses that have been shifted off piles and completely destroyed. So, yeah, we're acutely aware of this is a Hawke's Bay event.
I know you've got things to do, important stuff, so just very quickly, how much material is damaged and what does that mean for supply chains?
Well, for us, we don't hold, on our pulp business, we hold very little of our pulp inventory on site. That's mostly all stored at the Port of Napier, so what we've got at the Port of Napier is fine. However, only recently we've actually consolidated all of our dry storage of all of our lumber products onto our site. So unfortunately, those are all on the site tracked, and they will have suffered some water intrusion into the lumber products, but we're probably hopeful we can recover a lot of that by redrying it, by cleaning it, redrying it. But that's going to take a matter of weeks to get that sorted. We are fortunate we do have another small sawmilling operation in Otago. So that's fully up and fully operating, and we'll be able to back up some of our orders out of our Otago business. So, not fully down on the lumber side, but certainly we're full down on the pulp business.
And that's Tony Clifford, who's the Managing Director of PanPac. Okay, some messages here. Let's start with Hawke's Bay. If you were listening to us tonight from the Hawke's Bay, Civil Defence in Hastings has contacted us to say there's been some mixed messages about drinking water. They would like to assure people that water in Hastings is safe to drink. I'm going to repeat that. Water in Hastings is safe to drink. It says there is only one place that has a boil water notice, and that is Te Pōhui. And that is where they need to boil water. Hastings water, safe to drink. Someone else has got in touch and is asking, can we please find out when we can travel from Napier south on Highway 50 or Highway 2 out of Hawke's Bay? We are told, not set in concrete, in the next 12 to 24 hours, they hope to have some access out via those routes. Next 12 to 24 hours, but not set in stone. If you were listening to us from Wairoa, the town is completely cut off, the power is out, and food and water supplies are short and expected to run out in around 3 days. Mayor Craig Little told us earlier in the program the situation is desperate and residents must conserve water. Please conserve water if you are in that area. Welfare centres remain open at the Taiho Marae, Ruakaturi Resident Hall, War Memorial Hall and Kahununu Marae. So those are welfare centres if you need assistance. If you were listening to us from Gisborne, there are multiple breaks in the water pipe supplying Gisborne City, and it is not a quick fix. It is a significant crisis and you are being asked to conserve water. The recommendation is only use water for drinking, food preparation and hygiene, like washing your hands. Please do not use hoses outside to wash cars or to clean up silt. Gisborne Hospital is open but at a limited capacity due to limited power and water and staff shortages. Welfare centres do remain open in the area. They are at Ilminster Intermediate School and the House of Breakthrough Church. If there is an emergency and if you have a phone, you can call Civil Defence on 0800 653 800. So again, if there is an emergency, if you are in Gisborne and you need to call Civil Defence, the number is 0800 653 800. Remember, if the emergency is danger to life, then it's 111 all the way. Right, let's head in a totally different direction now. The red carpet has been rolled out for the Halberg Sports Awards tonight, and there's some added significance behind the event this year. It's been nearly 3 months since the death of the man the awards are named after, legendary runner Sir Murray Halberg. Well, joining us live from the red carpet is sports reporter Clay Wilson. Clay, this year's Halbergs isn't just about remembering the country's great achievements, sporting achievements of the past 12 months. It's a bit more. Tell us.
Kia ora, Lisa. Yes, of course, as you mentioned in your intro there, this is the first edition of this event since the death of Sir Murray Halberg, who died late last year, aged 89. Now, of course, Sir Murray is very well known for his running feats, that distinctive style he had, the withered arm that he picked up in a rugby injury when he was just a teenager, going on to win 5,000 metres gold at the Rome 1960 Olympics, part, of course, of that golden hour with Sir Peter Snell there at the Rome Olympics. 2 Commonwealth Games titles, multiple world records. So he achieved a lot on the track, but it's really what he achieved off the track later in his life that he's got a lot of recognition for. He launched the Halberg Trust while he was still competing in 1963, and he relaunched, in the process, he relaunched the National Sports Awards as the fundraiser for his work with disabled children. So these awards were actually renamed after Sir Murray in the 1980s. He's, despite his enthusiasm for that particular thing happening, but the Trust really over all these years has gone on to help thousands of particularly disabled young New Zealanders through sport to help enrich their lives. So there will be a special tribute in the early part of tonight's ceremony here at Spark Arena. There'll be some pre-recorded video messages from people that were close to Sir Murray. So as you say, a night not just to celebrate the achievements of last year with our athletes, but also to remember a great New Zealander.
And Clay, who can you tell us are the front runners for some of the big awards?
Yeah, so the sportswoman category, once again, is actually looming as the most hotly contested category here tonight. You have Zoe Sadowski-Synnott, who made history in Beijing last year, becoming the first New Zealander to win a Winter Olympics gold medal. Lydia Ko, the golfer, had a stunning bounce-back year last year. She's up. Ruahei Demant, the co-captain of that amazing Black Ferns team that went on to win the World Cup here in New Zealand. And then you have the likes of Dame Lisa Carrington and also Elise Andrews, who won the young cyclist who won 3 Commonwealth Games gold medals last year. In the sportsman category, the likes of Nico Porteous, another snow sports athlete who won gold last year. Aaron Gate won 4 Commonwealth Games gold medals last year. So some hot competition there as well. And then you look at the likes of the team category, you have the Black Ferns really well favoured to win that after what they did in the Rugby World Cup, and their coach Wayne Smith as well in the Coach of the Year category, looking like a front runner. So certainly some big names floating around, and hopefully.
Oh, I think we might have just lost Clay there. Clay was joining us live from the Halberg Awards, offering us a little bit of a distraction from the realities of cyclone recovery. To the UK now, and Buckingham Palace has said the Koh-i-Noor diamond will not be used in the coronation of King Charles. The coronation will take place on the 6th of May. And what's thought to be the first time in recent history that an existing crown will be recycled. Camilla will be crowned with Queen Mary's crown, the BBC's Charlotte Gallagher reports.
The Koh-i-Noor had pride of place during the Queen Mother's coronation. As one of the world's largest cut diamonds, it was quite literally the jewel in the crown. But the stone has a long, troubled history. It's been fought over and stolen countless times, with multiple countries claiming ownership. It was taken from India and given to Queen Victoria in 1849 and has been in the UK ever since. The historian William Dalrymple explains the significance of the stone.
Today, it's a symbol for Indians and for Afghans and for Pakistanis and Bangladeshis and to a lesser extent Iranians, of all that the West has taken from them. This tiny diamond, which you can hold easily in the palm of your hand, has taken on the entire weight of colonial loot.
There had been speculation that Camilla, the Queen Consort, would wear the crown that contains the Koh-i-Noor for her coronation. The Indian government were reportedly unhappy with the suggestion, saying it would evoke painful memories of the empire. Today, Buckingham Palace announced that Camilla will wear Queen Mary's crown instead. 3 diamonds from Queen Elizabeth's jewellery collection will be added to it. Crisis averted. The next controversy to deal with, whether Prince Harry will be at his father's coronation.
Most couples spend Valentine's Day celebrating their love, and one couple in the US state of Arizona took a bit of a detour to get there. Amy and Aaron, who first fell in love in high school, spent Valentine's Day choosing love and cancelling their divorce. CNN's Jordan Bontke reports.
An overcast day at a Maricopa County courthouse may not be the most romantic setting for a Valentine's date.
Hi, my love.
But Amy and Aaron know their love is resilient. Cupid struck Amy and Aaron when they were West Valley high schoolers. The age gap between a junior and a freshman had too many social consequences, they say. So the crush they had on one another?
She was smoking hot, for one.
He was dreamy.
Never flamed beyond a Tinder. Both would go on to marry separate people. Both had 2 kids, and both of those marriages ended in divorce. Aaron describes the process as going to war.
Well, it's giving up. It's giving up on love. It's giving up on what you want, what you don't want.
Since 2011, the marriage rate has declined by 8% in the U.S. The divorce rate, meanwhile, has dropped by 17% over the same period. In Arizona, the divorce rate dropped 20%, according to the CDC.
This is a 30-year-old romance here that's rekindled.
A 30-year romance of a crush that could have been.
What could have been rekindled through a mutual high school friend. Sparks on the first date led to a wedding over a year later. But combining kids, dogs, and the baggage of past relationships all under the same roof led these two back to the brink of divorce.
Don't want to give up on you.
Until this Valentine's Day, where Aaron and Amy found love in what can seem like a hopeless place.
We dismissed our divorce.
In the parking lot where some legally finalized their separation, the court filing to cancel their divorce reads more like a love note for these two.
I just think love can conquer all. We're going to spend the rest of our lives together, yeah?
Well, let's get to some information if you are listening from different districts tonight. If you're listening to us from Tairawhiti, Civil Defence tells us that many communities remain isolated with damage to the water treatment plant too. The Gisborne Herald's being delivered by foot and warning residents to conserve water. Power and cell phone coverage is also out for most, making things even more difficult. Most ATMs are out of action. They're trying to get one or two up and running, but at the moment shops that are open are asking for cash payments, although some do have limited FPOS. If you need help, there are welfare centres in some of the following places. Awatere and Hinepara Marae in Te Araroa, Rahui Marae in Tikitiki, the Manahania Marae, Whakarua, Te Kapa, Te Heapera and Penu Marae in Ruatoria, and the Taharora Marae in Tapuia, and the Sports Centre in Tuatini Marae in Tokomaru Bay, and Hoiti Marae in Tolaga Bay. Those are welfare centres if you need help. Listening from Coromandel, here are some messages for you. PowerCo is working to bring generators to some communities who may have been without power for 4 days. The Thames Coromandel Civil Defence Controller, Gary Towler, told us earlier in the program there are 7 to 8 communities still without power. He says fuel is in short supply in Mercury Bay and water is running out in Tairua. There are about 40 to 50 slips compromising roads around the Coromandel, but there is hope that State Highway 25 between Hikawai and Whangamata may open in a limited capacity later tonight or tomorrow, but you are expected to follow stop-go instructions, and it's going to be a slow journey. We have had a text asking about Hukarere Girls College in Eskdale, Hawke's Bay. The Esk Valley was one of the hardest hit areas in Cyclone Gabrielle. The school has been posting on Facebook today. It says the girls are safe and well in the dorms reading, playing board games and resting. They have a plan in place to move the girls once the roads have been cleared. So if you are worried about that, that is Hukarere Girls College in Eskdale. They're all doing really well there, and they are hoping that once the roads have cleared, they'll be able to travel safely. Now, the late news team is going to keep you updated throughout the evening. If you missed anything, don't forget you can play catch up, listen back to things from Checkpoint on Spotify, Apple, or wherever you get your podcast from, if you're able to get the internet. Ko te kaupapa tuatapi a pōpō. Tomorrow from 5 a.m, Deputy Prime Minister Carmel Sepuloni is live on First Up, and the show goes to the dogs. They're at a makeshift greyhound doggy kingdom set up for poochers displaced by the cyclone. We will be back with you tomorrow. Stay safe, and the news team, as we said, is going to keep you updated throughout the evening. We'll catch you tomorrow.
RNZ News at 7 o'clock. Good evening. Ngā mihi o te pō. I'm Evie Ashton. Help is coming from the Defence Force for Tairawhiti and Northern Hawke's Bay. The HMNZS Manawanui is sailing from Auckland with supplies destined for Tairawhiti and will deliver water supplies to small communities on its way. It's expected to arrive at first light in Gisborne. The HMNZS Te Mana will sail tomorrow to Napier, supplying Wairoa with water and other essential supplies. A member of the National Emergency Team has been on the ground in Wairoa today to help establish communications. An NH90 helicopter has moved teams into Wairoa, and a rapid relief team is working to provide a drop of bottled water for 3,000 people via helicopter, planned to arrive this evening. Meanwhile, Wairoa District Council is reassuring people in other parts of the country that its residents are safe. In a message on social media, the council says residents who needed to evacuate their homes are safe and being looked after in evacuation centres. It says restoring the town's internet and phone connections is a priority, and once that happens, people will be able to contact friends and whānau in Wairoa. Marae are among the properties flooded in Hawke's Bay. Ngāti Kahungunu Iwi Incorporated Chair, Baden Barber, says the community around Waiohiki Marae has been evacuated to Napier, and that's just one of the marae affected.
I know Tāngoio Marae is totally devastated. We saw some footage of that whole valley has been washed through. Omahu Marae, which is right on the Ngāruroro River, the banks burst and that was flooded right through.
Baden Barber says thankfully some marae have remained untouched and are currently serving as welfare centres for those displaced by the floods.